Alright y'all, we back and continuing this whole paranormal haunted history vibe we got going on. This next video here, man, is the top 10 terrifying places in Russia you should never visit. Oh yeah, we gonna check this out and see what they talking about, alright? They definitely got my curiosity. So if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, man, and go ahead and join the family. And make sure y'all run the likes up. Hit that like button. Let's check this out.
Even if you are someone who happens to seek out the company of paranormal entities, I think it's safe to say there are some places that are just too haunted to even mess with. Welcome back, most amazing crew. I'm your host Kennedy, and today we are counting down the top 10 terrifying places in Russia you should never visit. So grab whatever you need to ward off the demons and let's get started. Starting us off here at number 10 is Gustavnikov House. Back in the 19th century, this house in central Moscow was owned by a very rich couple, Peter and Sofia Gustavnikov. As legend has it, the couple were as greedy as they were rich, and so they routinely skimped on almost everything, particularly how much they paid their staff. On top of that, they were also incredibly paranoid that their fortune would be stolen from them, and so they began hiding away money in different places so that their servants couldn't steal it away from them.
Listen, man, I was always taught, bro, you feed the wolves or you become their prey. Listen, fam, you can't be having underpaid staff and you rich and running around and making them feel some type of way. No, you gotta feed the wolves, bro, or you'll become the prey.
So incredibly paranoid that their fortune would be stolen from them, and so they began hiding away money in different places so that their servants couldn't steal it away from them. Now maybe if they just paid their servants properly, they might not have been so paranoid about them stealing their money, but hey, that's just me. Apparently one of these hiding spots was inside the fireplace, and I honestly don't know how they thought this would turn out, but one day, without knowing what was inside of course, one of the staff members lit a fire and accidentally burned away all the hidden cash.
What did you think was gonna happen? Oh my gosh. What keeps ringing out in my head? Common sense just ain't so common, even if you're the wealthiest. Sheesh.
Of the staff members lit a fire and accidentally burned away all the hidden cash. It's said that Sofia was so distraught over the loss that she died of a heart attack, and her husband passed away shortly after. Since then, it appears their ghosts never got over the loss of their fortune and remain haunting the house to this day. According to visitors, the ghost of a hunched over old man in a coat has routinely appeared wandering the street and frightening off any that dare step close to his house. Some even say that you can hear the couple crying at night, mourning the loss of their fortune. Coming in at number 9.
I mean, do you blame them? I mean, to me, that's kind of a justified situation there. I could justify them becoming a ghost. That would definitely put my soul in limbo, like purgatory. Just not being able to be at rest. No, knowing that type of money was burnt. Yeah. I understand them becoming a ghost at that point. Yeah.
Hear the couple crying at night, mourning the loss of their fortune. Coming in at number 9 is St. Michael's Castle. Said to be home to the city's most famous ghost in all of Russia, if I were you, I would think twice before visiting this castle. The ghost in question that is said to haunt the halls is none other than the Tsar Paul I, the only child of Catherine the Great, and the man responsible for the construction of this very castle, who once upon a time found refuge within its very walls. However, the solace was short-lived. You see, Tsar Paul was not particularly well liked by the Russian nobility for a multitude of reasons, and so mere weeks after the castle was finished construction, a mob of his own drunken soldiers, with the blessing of his son Alexander, who, to be fair, had only instructed them to arrest him, decided against Alexander's method and instead invaded the emperor's bedroom. Once they were inside, they went ahead and brutally after he refused to abdicate the throne. According to legend, there is a particular window in the castle where he can be seen playing the violin, but whatever you do, don't disrupt him. You never know how he may react to another invasion. Coming in at number 8, Agumon of House. While today this building serves as the residence of the French ambassador, it has quite the haunted and mysterious past. During the late 19th century, it was built at the request of industrialist Nikolai Agumonov. As the story goes, Nikolai Nikolai had constructed the mansion to live with his mistress, a young dancer whom he was madly in love with. But once settled in, he caught her with another man and kicked her out of the house. What's strange though—
it's good to even know, like, back then, same way you get them is the same way you could lose them, bro. What did you expect? This is your mistress. You don't think she would do it again? Like, come on, fam. Even back then, you had to be smart.
Settled in, he caught her with another man and kicked her out of the house. What's strange though is that no one ever saw the girl again. Well, no one knows for sure exactly what happened to her. There is a dark legend that says Nikolai was so outraged by her betrayal that he bricked her up inside the wall and left her to rot and die. And if that wasn't creepy enough, there are many stories from Soviet times where people often saw the ghost of a young woman walking through the walls of this very mansion. By 1938, it was given over to the French embassy, and people would still report the ghost of a white woman wandering the halls.
To say he was madly in love with her, that's an understatement, bro. If somebody is gonna do that, to put you on a wall, like, that's a different kind. That's a scary type of love. I don't want that type of love. I don't want you to love me that much, bro. Like, you could tell it affected him.
Walls of this very mansion. By 1938, it was given over to the French embassy, and people would still report the ghost of a white woman wandering the halls. I'm just saying, hell hath no fury and all, so beware if you do decide to get close, you never know what could happen. Coming in at number 7, Griboyedov Canal. Well, during the day, this canal offers a beautiful view and a lovely walk along St. Petersburg. It's well known by locals that you should never dare visit it after the sun goes down. Legend has it that the famous revolutionary Sofia Perovskaya, who was responsible for the assassination of Tsar Alexander II, was by this very canal for the deed. Many believe she remains haunting the canal at night, and some even claim to have witnessed her apparitions firsthand. But
you heard they had to bleep out the words, so I can't really make out what she's saying. I know I had to do something with YouTube, so I'm gonna try to listen again to see if I can kind of make out what they had to bleep out in this video.
Never dare visit it after the sun goes down. St. Petersburg. It's well known by locals that you should never dare visit it after the sun goes down. Legend has it that the famous revolutionary Sofia Perovskaya, who was responsible for the assassination of Tsar Alexander II, was by this very canal for the deed. Many believe she remains haunting the canal at night, and some even claim to have witnessed her apparitions firsthand. But beware, this one ghost even enthusiasts should stay away from. It's said that to meet her along the canal is extremely bad luck, a bad omen even. Legend has it that the life of anyone who bears witness to her shadowy figure is at risk. So if I were you, I would stick to the sunlight, otherwise you might never see the light of day again. Coming in at number 6, House on the Embankment. Among one of the most famous buildings in Russia, similar to when it was built, this apartment houses high society writers, artists, actors, and athletes alike. However, don't be fooled, it's also got a dark history that will send shivers down your spine. Between 1936 to 1938, Russia faced what is now referred to as the Great Purge. This movement was spearheaded by dictator Joseph Stalin and was essentially meant to solidify his power as leader while simultaneously removing any remaining influence from his rival Leon Trotsky. There's a lot more to it, but the bullet points pretty much boil down to the fact that Stalin was becoming increasingly paranoid of being and so he authorized the NKVD, which were like the secret police of the USSR, to abolish opposing government officials and members of the Red Army. This, however, morphed into targeting ethnic minorities and was soon no more than mass executions that they would threaten civilians with should they disobey. During these dark times, the inhabitants of the House of Embankment were uniquely targeted, having had the highest rate of per capita arrests and executions of any other residential building in Moscow. Today, it's believed that all of the ghosts of these victims have never left and remain haunting the property. Those that live there report hearing the sounds of screaming late at night, or some have even seen a dark shadow stroll down the hallway alone. And while their ghosts might not be evil, the sheer amount of ghosts will definitely scare anyone with a pulse. Coming in at number 5, St. Petersburg Rotunda. Built near the end of the 18th century, this round building didn't earn its haunting cult status until some 200 200 years later in the 1970s and 80s. At first, it was just a gathering place for young rockers and punks who would often cover it in graffiti, but soon enough, strange stories began popping up about this seemingly innocuous building, and soon locals began to fear what was inside. First of all, legend has it that back in the day, the Rotunda was used as a meeting point for the secretive Freemasonry. At the time, it was pretty standard belief that those involved with the low-profile group were Satan worshippers, and so the rumors of it being haunted by the devil himself began to spread like wildfire. It's said that while it is totally safe to drop in during the day, at night it's a whole other story. And whatever you do, don't you dare go down into the basement alone.
If you know there are urban legends or horror stories or any type of negativity like this kind still surrounding a building such as this, why not just tear it down? I don't get it, man. Because you know this excites people's curiosity. Even today, if I tell you, hey, this place is haunted, you never want to go in there, stories is this is crazy, it's gonna make out of 10 people, probably a good 6 or 7 of them are gonna want to go in there. It's gonna make them want to go in there. So places like this need to be tore down, man. Like, I don't understand that.
Whatever you do, don't you dare go down into the basement alone. Legend has it that once a man accidentally found himself in the secret Freemason temple in the basement and found himself in a parallel world for 15 minutes. When he finally got back into our realm, he was an old man, and locals believe that anyone who risks going down there will face the same fate. Not to mention, it said Satan himself will appear at the stroke of midnight and bring you down to hell should you see him. So if I were you, I would find a different place to visit for your nightlife. Coming in at number 4.
Agreed. And even if the stories ain't true, bro, your mind has a way of playing with you and playing tricks on you, man, that you'll start manifesting certain things that happen negative and you'll associate it to you exploring and going down into that basement, bro. Stay away. Leave it alone.
Or Peter and Paul Fortress. In the heart of the city of St. Petersburg lies the notorious Peter and Paul Fortress. From the time of its construction in the early 1700s all the way until the early 1920s, the fortress mainly served as a prison for political criminals. Prisoners of the fortress were said to be kept in horrible conditions, forced into overcrowded dungeons, and often tortured and malnourished, and although it has been a museum since 1924, the ghosts that died in the prison dungeon have never left. Ghosts of prisoners such as the 5 Decemberists, a group of radicals who attempted to take down the emperor, and the son of Peter the Great, who was tried and found guilty of treason, are said to haunt the halls looking for revenge on their lives. But none is more frightening than the ghost of Princess Tarakanova, a pretender to the Russian throne who was captured and brought to the fortress for her lies of who she claimed to be. 2 theories surround her death, one being that she died of tuberculosis and was buried, the other that she was drowned while in her cell. But either way, those that visit the museum today claim to hear her blood-curdling screams coming from the dungeon below. Coming in at number 3, Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin. Located in the city of Nizhny Novgorod lies a terrifying Kremlin, or fortress, with an even more terrifying backstory. As legend has it, when the fortress was being constructed, the workers kept having difficulty with one of the towers. No matter what they did, it seemed that it kept falling down, and it was putting a big halt on production as they were not able to move on until they could get it to stay standing. Now, why the tower wouldn't stay standing in the first place, I have no idea, but their solution to the problem is where the story gets especially chilling. The men decided that the best way to ensure that the tower stayed standing was to make a sacrifice and build the tower on the blood of the first person who passed by them. Allegedly, the first person who walked past happened to be a pregnant woman hurrying over to the river for some water, but sadly she never made it past the men. It said they seized her and continued on with their cruel plan, breaking her up inside the tower while she was still alive. Ever since that day, the ghost of a pale woman is seen wandering the fortress, seeking revenge on the men who took her life. Coming in at number
again. And this fortress is still standing? Still standing. Are you kidding me? No way. No way, bro. That's just, oh my. I don't even want that type of story associated. And I would be trying to bury that story, bury that history, bury all that surrounds that, man, and get that kind of smudge off of our town, bro. But that place is possibly still standing. That's insane to me.
During the fortress, seeking revenge on the men who took her life. Coming in at number 2, Abavney Canal. Officially the longest artificial canal in St. Petersburg, the Abavney Canal once served as the southern border to the city. While today it no longer serves such a purpose, it's still a huge landmark, but not necessarily for a good reason. Tragically, despite not being very deep, this location happens to be a place where many have taken their own lives. The phenomenon began as far back as construction, when workers who were digging the grounds for the canal would routinely complain of debilitating headaches or suddenly become ill with previously non-existent health conditions. Workers even began turning violent towards each other seemingly out of nowhere, but still they were ordered to finish construction no matter what. Then in the 1920s, granite tombs were discovered when the government began building a road beside the canal. Archaeologists were not permitted to study these mysterious tombs. Instead, they were destroyed and construction continued. By 1920,
see, y'all be complaining about researchers out here looking and digging and saying we're affected. We don't even know where a lot of these tombs and different things are built at, bro. We could be living on something like that and wondering why we getting all these paranormal or haunted or negative vibes, or your body don't feel right. It could be what if you living on a burial mound? On some pet cemetery type stuff or something like that. Like, we just don't know what we're living on, man. This is something that, like, if you've ever thought of something, this type of stuff scares you, makes you think, fam.
Government began building a road beside the canal. Archaeologists were not permitted to study these mysterious tombs. Instead, they were destroyed and construction continued. By 1923, the rate at which people were dying in the canal began to skyrocket, and it became common knowledge to stay away. The few that have been saved from jumping in say that they had no intention to take their own lives prior to walking past the canal, and said an invisible force pushed them to do it. Others say they looked—
But yet you tell them to destroy the tombs? That's the history. That could be the answers to what's going on with people. Like, I don't understand the logic sometimes, man. They be quick to do something without even thinking. Destroy it. You just destroyed possibly your way of saving people's lives.
To the canal, and said an invisible force pushed them to do it. Others say they looked down from the bridge to see the corpse of a woman in white floating face up just beneath the surface, but as soon as they tried to call for help, she would disappear without a trace. To this day, people are warned to never stare into the murky waters in fear that whatever evil spirit lies below will bring them down with them. And last up today in our number 1 spot, Rasputins Apartment. Arguably one of the most well-known people from Russian history is the notorious Grigory Rasputin. What made him particularly interesting to many was his mysterious and mystical nature. Born into a peasant family, Rasputin managed to work his way into fame and power by becoming the faith healer for Russia's last emperor, Tsar Nicholas. But despite being loved by the emperor, not everyone in Russia was a big fan at the time. There was a lot of controversy surrounding Rasputin and his reputation, and many believed him to be a false prophet and potentially even an antichrist. But the most famous part of Rasputin's life is his death. And if you have never heard it before, buckle up. After a previous failed at the hands of a peasant woman that required surgery, Rasputin was once again targeted. However, this time it was a group of nobles who felt Rasputin's proximity and influence to the Tsar threatened the empire. As the legend goes, Rasputin left his apartment at midnight and headed over to Prince Felix Yusupov's quarters by invitation. The prince then attempted to poison him with cyanide-filled treats, but to the prince's shock, he wasn't being affected. Next, he asked for wine, which was also allegedly poisoned, and even after 3 glasses, the man remained standing. The prince then went upstairs to consolidate with his conspirators, and they decided to shoot him, with which he swiftly shot a bullet through his chest. The other 2 conspirators then drove to the apartment to make it appear as though he got home safe to his neighbors, and the prince went downstairs to check that the bullet had done its job. Suddenly, Rasputin leaped up at the prince and attacked him and chased him into the courtyard. In the courtyard, he was shot twice more, and he collapsed before he was wrapped in cloth and dropped into the river. It's said his ghost still haunts his old apartment, scaring modern inhabitants, with many claiming to have witnessed his shadowy figure lurk in the corner watching them. I'm just saying, this is one I do not want to mess with. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that
And the scary thing about this, that was the end of the video anyway, but the scary thing about this, man, is do you know the history of the town you live in? Or the place you're living at? The state? The area? Your surroundings? Do you know the history? Because we're looking at places in Russia that could be terrifying, but there's places right here where we're living or wherever you are, where you're located. Learn your history, bro. What could have taken place? That way you're not walking by some canal one day and you start feeling some type of way and you don't understand why or what could have happened here. You know what I mean? Like, places like this exist. Stories like this exist, and they surround places we live at, man. So understand and learn your history. That's all I'm saying, bro. Let some of this stuff be a lesson to you. All right? Y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of this video, man, and how you feel about it. It's your boy L. Stay around and stay tuned, man. Leave a like before you roll out. I'm gone. Peace.